Welcome to Priestess Initiations, the Goddess Coven. I'm Casey Dunn, educator, priestess, and professional somatic therapist. In April 2025, I went through a priestess initiation of old and launched the Priestess Initiations podcast 6 months later. Whatever brought you here today, I invite you to drop into the spiral with me. Let's begin. Welcome to Priestess Initiations. I'm Casey. This is episode 22, the final episode of season 1. And it's also spring equinox week, the astrological new year, the moment when light and dark are perfectly balanced, and then the light tips forward. Winter ends, spring begins. And we started season 1 in November, in the dark, in Scorpio season, in the underworld. We began with death, with descent, with the dark goddesses who teach you how to transform through darkness. And now, 5 months later, we are emerging. The seeds we planted in the dark are ready to break the surface. The energy is shifting, and the light is returning. This is Persephone's week. Not the Persephone who descends. We talked about her in episode 5. That was the death of the maiden, the initiation in the underworld, the becoming of the queen. This week is the Persephone who returns. The one who rises from the underworld every spring, not as the naive girl who left, not as Kore, the maiden, but as the sovereign queen who chose her throne. The one who wears 2 crowns, Queen of the Dead and Goddess of Spring. The one who holds both worlds without being split by them. This is the Persephone who brings gifts from below, who knows that nothing grows without first being buried, who understands that spring only exists because of winter, that light only matters because we know the dark. She doesn't leave the underworld behind. She doesn't graduate from the descent, she integrates it. And last week we talked about integration. And Persephone, right now, she becomes the bridge between the worlds. And that's what this week is about. Integration, balance, the moment when you stand at the threshold between winter and spring, between death and rebirth, between what was and what's coming, and you claim both. This week we have the final new moon in Pisces before the astrological new year. We have Mercury stationing direct after a month in retrograde. Some of you are probably excited about that. And we have the Sun entering Aries for spring equinox. We have the Sun meeting Neptune in Aries. The pioneer becomes the mystic. The warrior becomes the dreamer. This is not just another week. This is the turning point. I was going to say a turning point, but it's the turning point, the threshold. The moment when everything we've been gestating in the dark since November is ready to be born. And it's also the threshold between season 1 and season 2 of this podcast. And I love that. I had planned that I wanted to do 22 episodes for a season. And when I started this podcast, the week of my birthday in November, that was your first release episode. It was on my birthday. I did not plan out that it would work out for us to be on the spring equinox. And I got sick and episodes moved around and, and we threw an extra one in there by accident that I wasn't expecting. That's the therapist and priestess episode, if you haven't listened to it. And season 1 has been structured overall, planned, intentional. We moved through the goddesses mythologically. Persephone, Lilith, Medusa, Hecate, Isis, Kali, Mary Magdalene. We explored archetypes, we learned the myths, we descended into shadow work, and we integrated the lessons. And I learned from this that no matter how much you plan episodes, life keeps happening, right? So season 2 is going to be a little different, more spontaneous, more intuitive, more responsive to what's actually moving through me and through the collective in real time. Because that's what spring energy does. It doesn't follow the plan. It breaks through the soil when it's ready. It unfolds organically, unpredictably, wildly. So this episode is a bridge, a closing of one cycle and an opening of the next. A thank you to the underworld and a welcome to the light. A completion and a beginning. So let's talk about what's happening in the sky, and then let's talk about what it means to return. Not as who you were, but as who you've become. So this is one of the most potent astrological weeks of the entire year. And I've been saying that a lot the past few months, but the past few months have been wild. Like, astrologers have been going off about it all over the place for a reason. And again, I don't consider myself an astrologer, but I do really work with the transits and the archetypes that are within them. And this week, we're not just crossing a threshold. We're standing at the intersection of multiple thresholds happening simultaneously. So let me walk you through what's happening. Wednesday, March 18th, when this episode releases, we have a new moon in Pisces at 28 degrees. This is the final new moon before the astrological new year begins. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac, the end of the cycle, the dissolution, the return to the cosmic ocean before rebirth. And 28 degrees is a master degree, a completion degree. This is the last chance to plant seeds in the mystical, spiritual, creative realms before we move into the fire of Aries more fully. And so new moons are always about beginnings, but this one is about visioning, about dreaming your next chapter into being before you step into it, and about letting your intuition, your imagination, your spiritual knowing guide what you're calling in. And if you're interested, New Moon Initiates on Patreon get a full, possibly too lengthy new moon guide for the new moons. So you can go over there and check that out. But what I'm feeling with this new moon are these questions around, what are you ready to birth this spring? What's been gestating in the dark all winter? What seeds are you planting in the mystical waters of Pisces so they can grow in the fire of Aries? This new moon says, dream it first, feel it, see it, let it move through you, and then in 2 days, we ignite it. So Friday, March 20th, 2 massive shifts happen on the same day. First, Mercury stations direct at 8 degrees Pisces at 1:33 p.m. Mountain Time. And Mercury has been retrograde since February 15th. So we've been in 5 weeks of spiritual review, introspection, revisiting old patterns, going back over creative work, slowing down communication, some of us literally slowing down. I feel like I was sick for the last 5 weeks. I know a lot of other people have been struggling with that. And Mercury in retrograde in Pisces is about dissolving mental rigidity, letting intuition lead, softening the sharp edges of logic, and letting the mystical in. And now Mercury is going direct. Clarity's returning, decisions that have been on hold can move forward, and communication opens back up. Travel plans solidify, projects that stalled can resume. But here's what's important. Mercury doesn't just go direct. It goes direct in Pisces. And it's going to stay in Pisces until April 3rd. So we're not rushing back into sharp mental clarity and decisive action. We're moving forward with Piscean energy. Intuitive, fluid, creative, spiritually guided. So this still isn't the time to force things. This is the time to let things flow forward, to trust your intuition, to let your spiritual knowledge guide your next steps. And it's 7 hours before Mercury goes direct that the second shift happens, that the spring equinox arrives. So the sun enters Aries at 8:46 a.m. Mountain Time on this Friday. And that's the spring equinox, the astrological new year. And so for the past month, the sun's been in Pisces, mystical, dissolving, inward, dreamy, spiritual. We've been in the cosmic ocean, the womb, the liminal space between cycles. And now the sun moves into Aries, fire, initiation, courage, new beginnings, the warrior, the one who says, I am, and steps forward. Spring equinox is the moment when day and night are equal, perfect balance between light and dark. And then the light tips forward. And from this point until summer solstice, the days get longer. The light grows, the energy rises. Aries is ruled by Mars, the planet of action, desire, will, courage. And so when the sun enters Aries, we shift from the passive, receptive, dreaming energy of Pisces into the active, initiating, doing energy of Aries. We shift from what am I feeling to what am I doing about it? So this is the moment when the vision you planted at the Pisces New Moon ignites. When the seeds you've been holding in the dark all winter start breaking through the soil. Spring equinox is not subtle. It's activation energy. It's the cosmic green light. It's the universe saying, go, move, begin. The time is now. And this is the magic. Mercury goes direct in Pisces the same day that the sun enters Aries. So the sun enters Aries and then 7 hours later, Mercury goes direct. So we're being asked to move forward with clarity and intuition, to take action and stay connected to the mystical, to be the pioneer and the mystic. Which brings us to the final major transit of the week, and I'm doing a little longer astrology session today because it's the equinox. It's the spring equinox. So Sunday, March 22nd, the sun conjuncts Neptune in Aries at 5:18 a.m. Mountain Time. And the sun is your conscious identity, your vitality, your sense of self. Neptune is the mystic. Interestingly, it rules Pisces. The dreamer, the dissolver of boundaries, the spiritual visionary. And so when they meet, identity and spirituality merge. So Sun conjunct Neptune asks, who are you when you're connected to something larger than yourself? What does it mean to be a spiritual warrior? And what does it mean to step forward with faith instead of force? This is not the aggressive, combative Aries energy. This is the courageous dreamer, the one who takes action based on spiritual vision, the one who fights for something sacred. And this conjunction is happening in Aries, the sign of self, initiation, courage, new beginnings. So this is about spiritual self-creation, about creating a new version of yourself that's aligned with your soul's vision, not just your ego's agenda. So Sun conjunct Neptune in Aries says, you are becoming someone new. And this time you're doing it consciously, spiritually, with intention. So let's put it all together real quick. Wednesday, new moon in Pisces, dream the vision. Friday, spring equinox, and then Mercury goes direct. So clarity returns, the light tips forward, the new year begins, action becomes possible. And Sunday, Sun is conjunct Neptune in Aries, creating your spiritual becoming, your spiritual self-creation. This week is the bridge between the underworld and the upper world, between the dark and the light, between what you were and who you're becoming. This is Persephone's return, and you're returning with her, not as the maiden, but as the queen. So in episode 5, we talked about Persephone's descent, the initiation in the underworld, the choice to eat the pomegranate seeds and bind herself to the depths. But today we're talking about her return, because the descent is only half the story. The other half is the emergence. So every spring, Persephone rises from the underworld. She leaves Hades, leaves her throne as queen of the dead, and returns to the surface. Demeter rejoices, the earth blooms, winter ends, spring begins. But here's what the myth doesn't always emphasize. Persephone doesn't return as Kore. She doesn't go back to being the innocent maiden, the girl who picked flowers in the meadow, the daughter who existed only in relation to her mother. She returns as Persephone, as queen, as the one who has seen death, ruled the underworld, held the mysteries, guided souls through transformation. She returns wearing her crown, and she brings gifts. She brings the knowledge of seeds. She knows what it means to be buried in the dark, to wait through the cold, to trust that spring will come, even when you can't see any evidence of it yet. She knows that nothing grows without first being planted deep in the earth, covered in darkness, held in the silence. She brings the wisdom of death and rebirth. And she knows that things have to end for new things to begin. That you have to let the old version die for the new version to be born. That transformation requires loss, release, surrender. She brings integration. She doesn't choose between the underworld and the upper world. She doesn't say, I'm only light now. I'm all love and light, right? This is not love and light spirituality on this podcast. And she also doesn't say, I only belong in the dark. She says, I am both. She holds duality. She wears two crowns. She moves between the worlds with sovereignty. And she brings the reminder that you will return to the underworld. Spring is not permanent. The light doesn't last forever. In 6 months, she'll descend again. And that's not failure. That's the rhythm. That's the cycle. That's how life works. This is what we forget in a culture under patriarchy, under capitalism, that worships constant growth, constant productivity, constant upward movement. We think transformation is linear. You heal, you ascend, you transcend, and then you're done. You never go back down. But Persephone teaches a different truth. Transformation is cyclical. You descend, you emerge, you descend again, you emerge again, over and over and over. The spiral never ends. And each time you descend, you go deeper. Each time you emerge, you bring back more. Each time you wear the crown of the underworld, you learn to wear it with more grace. And each time you return to the light, you know more clearly what the light is for. Spring equinox is Persephone's return. And if you've been in your own underworld this winter, if you've been in grief and loss, in the dark night of the soul, in creative gestation, in the fallow time, this is your emergence moment too. You're not returning as who you were before the descent. You're returning as who you became because of the descent. You're bringing back what you learned in the dark. The golden shadow, right? From in Jungian terms. The strength you didn't know you had. The parts of yourself you reclaimed. The power you found in the depths. The sovereignty you claimed when no one was watching. And you're not leaving the underworld behind. You're integrating it. You're integrating shadow work. You're becoming the one who can move between the worlds. Who can hold winter and spring, darkness and light, death and rebirth, all at once without being split by them. That's what Persephone's return teaches. You don't transcend the underworld. you integrate it, and then you emerge as queen. So spring equinox is also called Ostara in many earth-based traditions. That's a pagan holiday. It's one of the 8 sabbats on the wheel of the year, the turning points that mark the cycles of light and dark, growth and rest, activity and dormancy. Ostara is the moment of perfect balance. Day and night are equal, light and dark are equal, and then the light wins, the balance tips. And so from Ostara to summer solstice, the days grow longer, the light increases, the earth warms, seeds sprout. I'm already seeing a few. Flowers bloom. Animals emerge from hibernation. Everything that was dormant through winter begins to grow. This is the season of emergence, of new beginnings, of action and outward movement. But here's what's important. Ostara only works because of what came before it. Winter is not wasted time. Winter is essential. It's the season of rest, composting, gestation. It's when seeds are held in the dark earth waiting. It's when animals hibernate, conserving energy. It's when the land goes fallow, regenerating for the next cycle of growth. If there was no winter, there would be no spring. If there was no death, there would be no rebirth. If there was no darkness, there would be no light to return to. Our culture has forgotten this. We live in a world that demands constant spring, constant growth, constant productivity, constant bloom. We're supposed to be on all the time, visible, producing, achieving, expanding. But the earth doesn't work that way, and neither do our bodies. Our bodies are animals. We are part of the earth. We have seasons. And when you try to live in constant spring, when you refuse to honor your winter, your rest, your descent, you burn out, you deplete, and you lose connection to your own rhythms. This is what I've been learning a layer deeper this winter. How to actually honor the descent time. How to let winter be winter instead of trying to force spring energy all year long. For me, winter is underworld time when I create, when I write, when the creative energy flows through me, when I'm channeling, not doing. It's feminine energy, receptive, intuitive, allowing. And then spring and summer are upper world time. They're more active, more social, more outward facing, more masculine in their energy, doing, initiating, building. And I used to think that meant I needed to produce more in summer, to hustle more and to push harder. But what I'm learning is that even in the summer, even in the doing season, I still need to resist the rushing, the urgency, the constant push. Because there's a difference between doing and rushing. Doing can be aligned, it can be in flow, it can be generative and sustainable. Rushing is what burns you out. Rushing is what disconnects you from your body, from your intuition, from the earth's rhythms. So even as we move into spring, even as the energy activates, even as we shift from receptive Pisces energy into the initiating Aries energy, we're not abandoning the wisdom of winter. We're bringing it with us. We're emerging with the integration. We're moving into action while staying connected to our bodies, our rhythms, our seasons. Ostara teaches balance, not just the balance between light and dark on this one day, but the ongoing practice of balancing action and rest, doing and being, emergence and descent. Persephone doesn't choose one world, she lives in both. And so do you. So as we cross this threshold into spring, into the astrological new year, into season 2 of this podcast, We're not leaving winter behind. We're integrating it. We're letting the seeds we planted in the dark break through the soil. We're letting the creative work we did in the underworld emerge into visibility. But we're doing it in rhythm with the earth. Not rushing, not forcing, not pushing past our capacity. We're doing it as Persephone does it. Wearing both crowns, walking between the worlds, honoring the cycle, trusting the spiral. So let's take a moment to reflect on where we've been. Season 1 of Priestess Initiations began on November 19th. That was 2025. I guess it's 2026 now, right? So November 19th, 2025. My birthday, a Scorpio new moon, the darkest time of the year. And we started in the underworld. Episode 1 was an introduction. 1 through 4 really were introductions. We did what this podcast is, what initiations are, some primers on yang and shadow work, on somatics and the body. And then we dove into the goddesses. In episode 5, we talked about Persephone, the death of the maiden, the descent, the becoming of the queen. Episode 7, we covered Lilith, the one who said no, the one who refused to submit, the one who chose exile over compliance. 9 was Medusa, the woman whose trauma became her power, whose gaze turned men to stone, whose rage was her protection. Episode 12 was Hecate, the crone, the crossroads keeper, the one who holds the keys, who guides you through liminal spaces. And we've revisited her a few times. And then 15 was Isis, the great mother, the magician, the one who resurrects the dead, who speaks things into being. 16 was Kali, destroyer, liberator, the one who dances on the corpses of what no longer serves, who clears the way for rebirth. And we'll probably revisit her this spring, because in Colorado, we are in massive drought, and we've had the worst snowpack in like 30 years. And so I'm anticipating some wildfires. So we're going to talk about Kali again in relationship to that for sure. And then episode 18, we visited Mary Magdalene, the high priestess that they called a prostitute, and then revoked it as a mistake. The apostle to the apostles, her connection to Isis and the Isis lineage, and reclaiming the sacred feminine. So we moved through those goddesses. We moved through shadow, death, rage, magic, destruction, resurrection, reclamation. And we integrated psychology. We brought in somatic psychology. I integrated my identities as therapist and priestess. And that showed up in future episodes. We didn't shy away from the hard things. We didn't spiritually bypass, to the best of my ability, I should say. I'm sure there's always more I could be doing. We went into the depths. We met the goddesses who live in the underworld, the ones who hold the difficult truths, the ones who teach through darkness. And we also explored the queen archetype. We talked about liminal spaces, talked about the witch wound with April. We did post-eclipse integration work. We wove in astrology. We practiced embodiment, and we built ritual. This season has been structured, intentional. I had a plan, and I followed it for the most part. I gave myself grace for wiggle room. And that was exactly what was needed, because winter requires structure. Descent requires intention. And underworld work requires a container. And we've talked about that, the importance of building a safe container in psychology to do deep shadow work. But now we're emerging. And spring doesn't follow a plan. It doesn't. So season 2 is going to be different, more spontaneous, more intuitive, more responsive to what's moving through the collective, through the cosmos, through me in real time. And that's why I'm sure that we'll be talking about Kali and wildfires, because that's been moving through me in real time. And I don't know exactly what season 2 will look like yet. Not in too much detail. And that's the point. I'm letting it unfold organically. I'm trusting the creative flow, and I'm letting the vision emerge instead of forcing it into a predetermined structure. Because that's what spring energy does. It breaks through, it surprises you, it grows in unexpected directions. So season 2 might have more guest conversations. That depends on our schedules, but we'll see. I have lots of people I'd love to have on. It might have more astrological deep dives. It might not. There might be episodes that have less astrology. It might follow different goddesses, different archetypes, different themes as they become relevant. I don't know yet, and I'm okay with that. I have lots of ideas, probably too many, and I write them down, but I'm trusting that what wants to come out each week is going to make sense for that week. Because I'm trusting Persephone's return. I'm trusting that what just stated in the dark of season 1 will emerge in its own time, in its own way, in season 2. And I'm trusting you to walk this spiral with me, to trust the process, to let go of needing to know what's coming. And I'm asking you to stay present with what's here. I'm asking for your feedback. I'm asking if there's a type of episode and you're like, wow, you did something really different and I liked it. Drop that in the comments so I know you that you want more of that. So where are we going? Season 2 begins next week because spring doesn't wait. And I did think about taking time off. I really did. A lot of people put time between seasons, and we'll see when we get to next fall time if that's feeling more aligned. But spring doesn't wait. The seeds are ready. The light's here. We're emerging. Season 1 was the descent. We built the foundation. We established the container. We went deep into shadow work, into the initiations that break you open and remake you. And now in season 2, we're going to build on that foundation with more freedom, more flow, more responsiveness to what's alive right now. And that's not to say there won't be structure. There will still be structure. There will still be occasionally planned episodes, goddess deep dives. I have some cool pairings I want to throw out there. I think I want to do an Athena and Medusa together episode for sure. There'll be more archetypal explorations, astrological teachings I always like to look up in advance so that I get the transits right for you all. And there might be interviews if the right conversations emerge, if the right voices want to join. But there will also be more spontaneity, more room to respond to what's moving through the collective. And there's a lot moving through the collective right now. Thinking about that might be part of what we talk about next week, because any of you who are, and I'm assuming it's a lot of my listeners, who are really intuitive beings are tapped in to the collective right now. And the energy there is really intense. And so if there's a major transit happening and it's activating something urgent in the collective, I want to talk about it that week, not 3 weeks later, because that's when it fit into the content calendar. But if a download comes through at 3 a.m. that needs to be spoken, I want to speak it. Probably not at 3 a.m. I very much value my sleep, but in the morning when I wake up. And if a ritual emerges that doesn't fit a neat structure that needs to be shared, I want to share it. Season 1, I'm going to be vulnerable here, but it was about proving to myself and to you that I could do this, that this work matters, that the priestess path is real and needed and worth walking together. And now in season 2, I get to play. I'm giving myself that permission. I get to experiment. I get to let the creative energy flow through me without needing to control exactly where it goes. And I want to invite you to do the same in your life. How can you invite more play in? And then in season 2, I'm also committing to honoring my seasonal rhythms even more intentionally. That was one of my big goals for 2026. And so spring and summer are going to be more active, more social, more visible. Yeah, you might even see live events coming up or workshops as we move deeper into the year. And that said, there is a workshop if you're in the Boulder area in May that I'm co-facilitating as a guest teacher with a Goddess Coven member named Shanti. And it's going to be super cool. So if you're in the Boulder area, check that out. It is on our website, which the link is in the comments, and it's also posted on our Patreon. But it's an afternoon goddess initiation on May 3rd, and it's up at the Star House. And so the registration link for that is on our website. And so I hope to see you all there in person. It'd be so great to meet you all. And spring and summer, I also, I want there to be more channeling, more creativity, more going with the flow. And so Akashic Records readings will be coming out too. I'm not going to force productivity year round. I'm going to let the podcast mirror the seasons because I want to invite you to do this. I want to walk the walk, not just talk the talk. So I want to let the podcast rest when it needs to rest. So there might be a few weeks off between this season and the next one, if that's where we're at. And fall and winter, that's probably when I'll do more solo deep dives, more mythology, more of the quiet mystical work. Letting it rest when it needs to rest, letting it bloom when it's time to bloom. Because that's the teaching. That's what Persephone's been showing us all season long. You don't have to be in constant spring. You honor the cycles. You trust the rhythm. You wear both crowns. So season 2 is an invitation to trust the unfolding. And this is the invitation to you, to let go of needing to know what's coming, to show up for the spiral as it reveals itself. And I'm inviting you to keep walking this path with me. I invite you to trust your own rhythms, to honor your own seasons, to let yourself descend when it's time to descend and emerge when it's time to emerge. We're in this together. The coven is forming, the work is deepening, the spiral continues. So next week, season 2 begins, and I'm so grateful you're here. All right, so season 1's complete. And we're going to do our closing practice in just a second. We descended together. We met the goddesses. Persephone's rising now, and you're rising with her, not as who you were, but as who you become. And so I want to offer a closing practice, a spring equinox practice. And hopefully it will feel like a ritual of emergence and balance. So just taking a moment to find a comfortable place to sit or stand. If you can do this practice outside, even better. If not, that's okay. Just imagining yourself standing on the earth. Close your eyes if you're not driving. And then take a deep breath in through your nose. And let it all the way out through your mouth with a sigh. Again, breathe in and sigh it out. One more time. Breathe in and release. Now bring your awareness to this moment, spring equinox, the turning point, the threshold between winter and spring, dark and light, death and rebirth. Feel yourself standing at that threshold. 1 foot still in winter, 1 foot stepping into spring. Choose the foot so you can be with it, so you can feel it. Whatever foot you chose for winter, take a moment to honor winter, to honor the dark, to honor what you learned in the underworld. Let that foot feel heavy, grounded, deep earth energy. What did winter teach you? What did you release? What died? What transformed? Don't rush past this. Let yourself feel it. Let yourself acknowledge how far you've come. And if you need to pause the podcast, pause. And when you're ready, now take a moment to honor what you're bringing with you from the underworld. And as you do so, feel the earth, feel the energy under that foot, the earth energy just travel up into your body. What strength did you find in the dark? What power did you reclaim? What wisdom did you earn? Feel it in your body. Pull it up through from the earth, from your foot, into your body. And this is not just intellectual knowledge. This is embodied knowing. This is your crown. Now bring your awareness to the other foot, to spring, to the light, to emergence. Let that foot feel light. Let it feel warm. And ask yourself, what's ready to break through the soil? What seeds did you plant in the dark that are ready to grow now? What's wanting to bloom in you? Let yourself see it, feel it. Really let the vision rise. And again, you can pause here on the podcast if you need. And here is the balance. You don't have to choose between winter and spring, between the underworld and the upper world, between darkness and light. You are Persephone. You are both crowns. So take a breath and imagine yourself standing fully in your power. 1 crown on your head for the underworld, 1 crown for the upper world. Both, simultaneously. You are the queen of the dead, and you are goddess of spring. You hold death and rebirth, darkness and light, descent and emergence. You are not split. You are integrated. Now, with the foot that you chose as spring, take 1 step forward. And let your other foot follow you. Because you already pulled up from the earth, from the depths, everything you want to take with you into your body from the underworld. Well, carry that with you as you step forward into spring. Just this first step. And now imagine roots growing from your feet, deep down into the earth, down to the underworld, connecting you to the depths, to the dark, to the throne below. And at the same time, imagine branches growing from your crown up into the sky, up toward the sun, connecting you to the light, to the air, to your throne above. You are the bridge the world tree, the axis moon die. You hold both worlds. Take one more deep breath. Feel yourself grounded in the earth and reaching toward the sky. Feel yourself rooted in the dark and blooming in the light. This is balance. This is Astera. This is the equinox. And now I'd like to invite you to speak a commitment out loud or silently to yourself, saying, I honor my winter. I honor my spring. I honor my descent. I honor my emergence. I wear both crowns. I walk between the worlds. I trust the spiral. And so when you're ready, bring your awareness back into your body, wiggling your fingers, wiggling your toes, feeling yourself here now on this threshold. Spring equinox has arrived. The light is returning, and you are emerging, not as who you were, but as who you've become. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting me in season 1. Thank you so much for walking this spiral with me. Season 2 is coming. The vision's unfolding. Coven's growing. You can join us on Patreon. There is a free option to join. There's not as much stuff that I post in that realm, but you do still occasionally get updates. And then there are multiple tiers where you can get lots of cool stuff from all the way from like my personal art and poetry and full moon rituals, new moon rituals. You can list your business on our regular Goddess Coven website. And there is also just the Coven member tier where you get your astrology updates and you support this podcast and this process. So trust the process, trust your rhythms, trust the spiral. I'll see you soon. Subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. Trust the spiral. This podcast offers spiritual and psychological education and priestess wisdom. This is not therapy, counseling, or mental health treatment. If you need mental health support, please contact a licensed provider. And in a mental health emergency in the U.S., call 988.